Hello, everyone, and welcome to another free webinar. Today's free webinar is Billing with Trust Transfers. By a show of hands, please let me know if you can hear me on the viewing panel there. You should be able to see, okay. Thank you for that. Now, by a show of hands, can you see my screen? Okay, so you can see my screen. Everyone can see my screen. It should say Abacus Law Accounting. Great. If you can't see my screen, please comment on the chat box and let me know that you cannot. Okay, it looks like everyone can see my screen. Again, thank you and welcome to, again, my name is, actually, I haven't even said my name. My name is Benfu de Lemos, and I will be hosting today's free webinar. So, since we're going to be talking about billing with trust transfers, I am going to assume that some of you have not even had a class where you know how to set up your cases in billing and accounting. So I'm going to take it from the very top and I'm going to go step by step on just, make sure that the matters are being set up properly in billing and accounting. And for that, it entails that when you create a case or a matter, from Abacus Law that there is the bill to link assigned to it. So you just have to make sure that when you are in your matter and you go to the link names tab, that there is a name that has a bill to link. This will allow you to then go to billing and accounting and prepare the invoice or prepare the bill, right, for the person that you've assigned as the bill to. So the invoice is going to go to that individual. The bill tool also serves as the bridge, as you would say, between case not only existing in Abacus Law, but also existing in billing and accounting. So this is the guy that you want to have. If you have a matter or a case open and you don't have a bill to link, right, then you will not see this particular case in billing and accounting. In case you're wondering, how do I go about adding a bill to if you've never had one? If it would be empty as far as names being listed here, all you got to do is click on the bill to, and that will take you straight to the names database. And then you'll be able to assign the data, the actual name that you want to link as the bill to, and then you would have your bill to already set up. Okay, so keep that in mind. That is obviously the very beginning stage. Hopefully, most of you already know how to do that, but I can't assume that you guys have. So that's why I'm taking it right from the top to ensure that you know how to set it up in the case and practice manager. So let's move on and go back into our Abacus Law accounting portion, which is where the billing is going to be set up as well. I am kind of old school when it comes to my menu bar. So instead of clicking on icons, which you can, by the way, you can click on the matters icon here and gives you your matters browsed all together. You could do that way, or you could do the good old matters and then click on matters again, and it'll take you to the same place. When you're here, excuse me, now you're going to search for that matter that obviously has that you're trying to set up when it comes to the matter maintenance of it. So what I mean matter maintenance and general information, I am referring to the concept of how are we billing this client, right? That's why we're going to have the general and tab information that I'm going to call over, the billing, the rates tab, the address tab, all the general information that can be edited here. Okay, let's start with the general information. For those of us that obviously are talking and referring to trust transfers and trust account, there's going to be the one indicator here at the top which says default trust account. Now, most firms have just one trust account. So when this trust account that is by default already set up is not the actual, obviously not your actual trust account. It's just a trust account within Abacus Law. Okay. If you happen to have two different trust accounts, this is where you're going to assign the specific trust account to the right case. And this setup again is on a matter by matter basis or a case by case basis. So if you did have two trust accounts, you would click on the lookup arrow here and you would have set that up as your chart of accounts already. In this instance, I have one for trust account and a second one just to show as an example that you can have multiple trust accounts set up. but most firms only have one trust account and it'll default to that. So you really don't have to worry too much about what trust account is being attached to that particular case or matter, as it is in this case. Okay. The other concept within the matter maintenance, again, some of you might have done this and might already know this, but again, I'd like to elaborate a little bit more since we're setting up, and we're building with trust matters. Might as well cover this as well. When it comes to the lead attorney for any given case that you're creating in Abacus Law, the name of the lead attorney that you enter there, the initials that you put forth there, is going to come through over into billing and accounting. And here it'll populate all three of my designations, as in responsible timekeeper, originating timekeeper, and assigned timekeeper. Okay. Some firms like to designate these and differentiate because for reporting purposes, then they can look into further and do a more detailed reporting, or more, I should say, more of a filter of a reporting with these different designations. Originating timekeeper can be the person or the attorney bringing in the business. Responsible timekeeper can be the attorney that is handling that matter or case within your firm. Obviously, it'll be responsible for billing it out. Assigned timekeeper can be more of the junior associate, let's say, and you have a senior or a partner bringing the business and then assign all the work to this particular attorney. So you can have these different types of breakdowns and filters, not only useful for reporting purposes, but also for generating pre-bills and invoices. Okay. Quickly over in the comments section, there are pre-bills. I don't know if some of you are aware what pre-bills are, but pre-bills are internal rough drafts. Internal rough drafts are meant to be exactly that, the word internal, for review of the attorney, not to be obviously seen by the clients. So in these internal rough drafts, we have the ability here in this comment section to add a note so that when you hand it over to the attorney for review, they can then see what that note entails. In other words, let's say that you needed to say something along the lines of a special billing arrangement that might have been conveyed to you by the attorney already, but they might have forgotten. In order to make sure that you have it in writing and you have it documented, you can put it in here. Something along the lines as, oh, after exceeding the $5,000 threshold, we're going to provide them with a 10% discount. Maybe a reminder, maybe something that wasn't done before, right? And you simply want to know that. So instead of putting it on a post-it, on a yellow post-it or whatnot, they can put it in the actual comment section here, and it'll be documented and it'll show up on the pre-bill when the attorney reviews it. Okay. When we jump into the billing side, this is obviously the part that's going to refer to the different billing methods for which you're going to be billing your client. In the case, depending on the case type, right, and on the cases that you may have, you can bill hourly, you can bill flat fees, or you can bill contingency basis. Just know that that's going to be your billing modes, or as we call them billing modes in the industry, they might be called billing methods. Okay. The key here that I want to make sure that I'm reflecting is that you have the billing format code. Think of the billing format code of how the invoice looks like, or the invoice is formatted. Clearly, you need to make sure that you're matching or pairing up the right format code with the right billing mode. In other words, if I look up here and I go, well, if I'm billing an hourly format of an invoice, type of an invoice, then clearly I'm going to select an hourly billing mode. And you get the idea after that. You get your flat fee with a flat fee, right? Flat fee option, settlement statement with a contingency basis, and that's how it should be done. Okay, at the end of the day, depending on how you're billing and what billing method you're using, that also dictates the billing frequency, or you have a choice for the billing frequency. All of these are options so that when you're generating invoices later on, you are able to distinguish, any classifications that you might have specified within all the different types of cases, so you can run batches on them at a time. Oh, give me all the contingency invoices, or give me only the hourly invoices, that sort of thing. Okay, so that information is what you'll need here. In the billing remarks section, in case you're referring to um, the whole adding verbiage to the actual invoice, this is where you would put in the information, and then it'll reflect somewhere within the invoice. If that's what you'd like to see, this is your chance of entering that information in there. Okay. Now we are talking about trust transfers here. Okay. There is something that we call the minimum trust retainer. So for those of you that will be using what we call a retainer that needs to be replenished, this is where you would want to put that amount. For example, If I am going to always need to have $2,000 in my retainer, right? And I've used up, let's say I'm sending out a bill for $3,000 right now, and I'm going to use the entire $2,000. And let's say that that money is already in your trust account. I am applying the trust of the 2,000 against my 3,000, right? If I do that simple transaction, it'll say that at the end of the invoice that the client still owes us $1,000. Now, if I come in here and I put $2,000, as in always needs to be at least $2,000 to be replenished, when we run that same invoice, right, that was for 3,000 and we apply 2,000, which means it leaves a balance of 1,000. But because we have 2,000 here in minimum trust retainer, then it'll obviously added to the total of what should be owed to you, a total of 3,000. Okay, I can give you demonstrations on that, exactly how that looks like when we walk through one example, but just know that this is what that minimum trust retainer is referring to. Okay, let's move on after this and go into the rate section. I don't know if some of you have used these, but you can set up what we like to call your rates here. So think of rate sets as rate levels, right? We have rate levels. We have up to 25 different rate levels. And when I say rate sets, I'm talking about standard rates versus maybe non-standard rates. Among the non-standard rates could be, and again, this is just example that I'm using at the top of my head, a grandfathered in rate, which is obviously going to be for those attorneys or those clients that you've had for a while, right? Maybe something along the lines as a friends and family rate, or even, and again, I'm making these up, maybe 10% across fees rate, right? So you can set up all these rate levels so that it makes your life easier. So if I go back here now and I go, oh, give me the rate level 2, and I hit OK, it'll fill in within my list box what my rate level 2 is already that I've assigned to all my timekeepers. So it saves me time because I've preset this, so to speak, right? And I don't have to come in here and every single time manually change every single rate for that case that I'm preparing. So you can be using rate set, obviously rate level 1 or rate set 1 as your standard. You're going to be using that more than often for a lot of your cases. But what if you already had other types of non-standard rates that you want to use constantly? So it makes your life easier if you set up that once, and all you got to do is put a number 2 here, hit OK, and all your rates will be automatically populated. So for that magic to happen, or to pre-configure that, let's just go into File, Setup, and we're going to go into timekeeper codes. And here you're going to have the entire list of all your timekeepers, right? If you haven't created one, then you've got to add them in here. And then it's just a matter of you clicking on the name that you want to make sure that you're entering all the different rates or all the rates for all the different rate levels. So I can go highlight my name, double click on it, and I'm going to go under the rates tab. So you can see so far for my firm, I only have 4 different rate levels. That means that every single one of my timekeepers should have the same amount of rate levels filled out as well, right? Because you don't want to have 4 and then some of them have 3 and some of them have 2. Clearly, they should all have 4, right? And then you can see the list of the rate levels here that can go on and on if you ever wanted to use every single one of them. So you the same thing that I'm going to do here for myself, right? I then got to do it for Caroline Lopez, which seems to obviously I put 4 there as well. Maybe if I go to the next one, I don't know, Enrique Spain, I go in, and it looks like I have 4 there as well. So you can see that I've actually took the time already to put all this together. At the end of the day, it's just going to make your life a little easier. So I suggest that if you haven't tried to do so, make sure you preset all of those. By the same token, there's another example that I can set up called a single rate. I can go into a single rate here. I can just double put in the amount that's going to be for everyone. And notice how right now everyone is 0. But the minute I put 300 and I hit OK, everyone's going to be set at 300. By the same token, if I go back to timekeeper code rate, and let's say I want everyone to bill at 1, but then I want to do what I like to call a one-off situation. What is exactly that? Well, that means that this rate set that I'm about to create only really applies to that particular case, one instance, and I'm not really going to use it again later on. Do I need to create an entire rate level or rate set for that? Not necessarily. Let's say that the deal is for one of my very good friends from my childhood. right? And I know he's in a bit of a pickle and he needs some, some help. Obviously, the good friend that I am, I'm going to go in and I'm going to set up a rate set or a rate level where everyone bills at standard. And I personally, who will be doing most of the work, will be billing at not my regular rate, but rather at my half rate, or I don't know, even cut them a better deal than that, 150 rate, right? You can go in and you can modify my rate because I'm going to be doing most of the work. He's going to be okay with it. I'm not can't intervene with the rest of my staff, which is billing at their standard. But since I'm doing most of the work, why not? Again, this is a one-off situation. There's no way I'm going to bring my rate down ever like that, unless, again, I think it's deemed necessary, right? Maybe for a good old friend. So you can do those kinds of one-off situations, and when you see the asterisk on the OR, that means that you have done a override, right? And that you'll know that. And then when I start billing for this particular case or matter, every time it'll bill at my rate 150 as opposed to my regular standard rate 500 as it is listed on this box. And just so you know, whatever is listed on the box here is what ultimately shows up on the timekeepers on the time tickets when you're calculating the timekeeper's rate. Okay. Okay, so having said all that, that's how you set up your rates. The other thing that I want to talk about is the address. Okay, when and I just mentioned that about the bill too. Again, a very simple concept that if you haven't done so already, as far as creating your case or matters, when you create the case or matter, you should have designated a bill to link. That person or that name that's designated or is assigned as the bill to link, that address and under that individual's name is going to move forward into the billing and accounting section. And whatever is here, it's what actually shows up on the invoice itself under the address portion. So if you need to update the address, you're not going to go here and do so. I mean, you can, but that would only change, right, this information here and the actual invoice. Will it change it in law? The answer is no. This section does not talk back to Abacus Law, or it does not talk back to, you know, case and practice management. However, if you needed to update the address, and instead of going through here, you actually update in Abacus Law will talk to billing and accounting. It'll update this, and therefore you don't have to enter in that new updated address in two places, right? Only in once. Just do it in Abacus Law, and you're good to go. If you enter it here and you think it's going to get updated in Abacus Law, it won't happen. Okay, so just giving you a fair warning on that in case you say, "Well, I updated it because in the invoice it shows up, and why didn't it update it in Abacus Law?" It doesn't do it. Okay, but if you update it in Abacus Law, then you'll have it in both places. Okay, so just keep that in mind as a reference. Now, we did all of that, but we really haven't talked about of how simple it is really just to make a trust deposit. Because clearly, if we're going to bill with trust transfers, then clearly we need to know how to first make sure that there is some trust money, right, in the trust account, so that then we can generate an invoice against, of whatever unbilled time you have, so that you can apply it against some of the trust monies that you already have in place. So first things first, right? You obviously know how to do the maintenance of it because we just went over that. The other daily task that needs to happen is that people enter their time, right? Timekeepers go in, attorneys enter their time, legal assistant enter their time. Of course, you're going to enter some costs as well in there, right? All of that needs to get done. And even some payments need to be entered, right? Let's say there's some invoices that they paid, some of the amounts due, and now it's simple. Now, again, you obviously need to make sure you enter some trust monies into, or trust deposits should be made into that particular case as well. So where do I go to do that? I'm going to go into my trust option here at the top, which is my menu bar. So I'm going to click on trust. Then I'm going to click on trust deposits. It's fairly simple. You simply go in there. And the whole concept, again, is very similar to entering payments and entering costs into Abacus. If you're not familiar with it, well, Abacus likes to have a list box like this one of anything that has been entered, and it will be listed here. If nothing has been entered, meaning entered in, and I'll show you what I mean by entered, it won't be here at all. So it'll be empty. Well, the first step into posting anything into the system, you have to make sure you enter first. It's listed here, then you're going to post it. Okay, so what does this mean if I have one that's lingering here that I never actually post? That means you entered into the system, but you never got around to posting it. And if you don't post it, then it won't show up on the invoice. As in, there's $1,000 from trust monies for this particular matter, 1413. That's what that means. That means that you just entered it here, but it won't reflect on my invoice just yet. So how do I get my information entered in this list to begin with? You're going to click on Add. Okay. Then you're going to go into your matter number option. You then are going to click on, let's say, Bell, as in Stefan Bell. And then you're going to enter in your amount. Now, before I even do that, clearly you have to have your trust monies with you. Okay. So if you're not sure if someone else did it already, right? In other words, anybody else entered this within your staff, okay? Isn't it good to maybe double check to see if someone already took care of this or not, right? So how would you go about doing that? Well, you can go back to your trust and you can go to Matter Trust Activity. When I click on Matter Trust Activity, again, I'm gonna go to Stefan Bell here. I'm gonna pull up the number that the name of the matter that I need. I'm gonna double click on it and I'm gonna go all the way to the bottom. As I go all the way to the bottom, it looks like, oh, no one has entered it because recently I can tell, right, that it hasn't been entered. The last one that was entered was back in January 2nd, 2019. So that's one way of saying, oh, so-and-so, we got the money, but they never entered into the system. Or you could have said, I'm going to do it right away the minute we get the money, so you don't have to worry about who's entering or not. And right away when you get the money, you could have entered it, without having to check anything, right? That's who's going to want to have the money lingering around. But again, depending on how busy you guys are, you would be able to take care of this procedure sooner rather than later. So I'm going to go back to Stefan Bell, for example. I'm going to double click on him and I'm going to say, well, there's another $2,000 in there. Okay. And in the description, you can be, you know, as detailed as you want. Whatever's going to make sure that you're referencing this money and you'll be able to identify what the money is, right? So I'm just going to put testing internal retainer, right? Or initial retainer, or whatever it is that you want to enter it there. You can go ahead. I'm just obviously just entering what I see fit. After that's in, you're going to click on done. And oh, by the way, before I go into, let's say you made a mistake. I go, oh, I didn't put it in the right trust account because I didn't go over that, right? I'm going to go back in. You can always edit it. Before you post it, you can still do some editing, right? So you can go edit. Then you're going to go to the trust account. Remember the trust account in the matter maintenance, right? That I told you that is defaulted normally to the obviously one trust account. Here you have, here that's what's going to be reflected here right away is going to be that trust account that you put in the matter maintenance. So if this is wrong, that means that you got to go back to your matter maintenance, put in the right trust account, and it'll come back and it'll reflect it here. And for purposes of general information, right, I suggest you do the change in matter maintenance so that then it reflects the right matter the right trust account in this section. Okay. Again, I'm going to hit done in this case. I'm going to highlight. Nothing has really happened just yet. Why? Because I just entered it, but I've yet to post it. Okay. You can post more than one at a time, or you can do one at a time. You can print receipts and deposit slips prior to posting it. Okay. If you were to use those features, just know that you got to do it beforehand. Okay. Let's just say that I'm going to go into my money trust and I'm going to hit post. Once I do that, I'm going to get a little prompt that says the deposit date on your screen should be the actual date the payments are deposited into the bank account. It's talking about this deposit date. In other words, right after I put this in the system, are you going to go after work and you're going to go to the bank and you're going to physically deposit it in the bank? Because at the end of the day, if you're going to be using the accounting features from Abacus, right, and you're going to be running accounting from here, you're going to be doing some bank reconciliations, right? So you want your bank statements that when you're doing your reconciling with what's in Abacus for those to match up. So clearly, these deposit dates should obviously be pairing up because if not, At the end of the day, you're just doing more work and you're trying to figure things. Why are the bank statements and Abacus all off and so forth and so on, right? So make sure that you know that. So you're going to continue with the posting. I'm going to say yes. And just like that, I have posted that $2,000 for Stefan Bell. Okay, so now we took care of all what I like to call daily tasks. Okay, so what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to go and generate my invoice. Now, I want to assume that most of you know how to generate invoices already within this group. If you haven't done so, the process, as I like to call it, is the 3 Ps, as in Peter. So when I go to billing, I'm going to have pre-bills for my first P, print bills for my second P, and post bills for my third P. Okay, pre-bills are meant to be internal, as I already mentioned, which means that that's the first step when you're creating or you want to give to your attorney for review X pre-bill for a particular case or matter. So you would click on pre-bills, and then if you haven't done this already, you would notice that you get a blank canvas here, which you can add to it, and that's how you would create one pre-bill at a time. I'm not going to go through every single step on how the pre-bill is done. I'm actually going to breeze through this part because if you haven't done this already, you should obviously do some one-on-one trainings with me where we actually are going through the process of how the pre-bills get created, okay, and how the bills get created. Right now, I'm going to cut through just so you know how to generate a pre-bill, just to show you how the pre-bill looks like, right? Just so you see what kind of information there and what the client is, what the attorney is reviewing, and how they can obviously verify that there's some trust monies or whatnot, and then generate the invoice and then apply the amount of your trust against the invoice that you're generating. Okay, so just so you know, I'm not going to go too detailed like I normally do in a regular one-on-one training. So let's keep it simple. Let's generate a pre-bill. So I'm going to click on add. I'm going to go to select bills individually, and I'm going to go in and I'm going to put 1021 because that's my matter for Stefan Bell. Okay, the concept here is pretty simple. In my matter that I'm generating, right, and I'm doing it through current date 3/5, I'm just going to hit add billing run, and there is my pre-bill. So when we look at the pre-bill, what kind of information do we see in the pre-bill? Well, if you haven't seen a pre-bill before, I'll give you a quick breakdown. Not only does it give you everything that you entered in matter maintenance, as in the type of client, the type of invoice, hourly, monthly, the attorney, right? It gives you a breakdown of what is aging, gives you a breakdown of what you've built so far as fees and as far as costs. It gives you the current unbilled, so it gives you a chance for you to, as an attorney, mark it up, give it back to your billing person. They can come in here and edit on the pre-bill stage. Okay, then after that, you can see in the breakdown here, not only do you have unbilled time, you can have some, it doesn't look like we have some cost advance, so there's not there, but we definitely have $5,000 or so that are still outstanding. So that looks like we can use the trust activity recap, which, by the way, you notice in my trust activity recap that when I looked under Stefan Bell, I had a whole lot of trust monies being applied back and forth, right, and withdrawn to apply some invoices. Well, here it's only going to give me my latest transaction. So the attorney is going to know, oh, we only got $2,000. Great, because we got a lot that we need to make sure that we're applying this $2,000 for. So we're going to apply the 2,000 against that total amount due of 5,280. Okay, so those are going to be the instructions by your attorney to your billing person. You'll either write it up, mark it up here in the pre-bill, tell that billing person. So the billing person is going to go, okay, that's obviously fair enough. So I'm going to go back in. Now you did the pre-bill stage. You're going to go into the print bill stage. And the print bill stage is where you're finalizing what obviously has been marked up or the instruction that you received from your attorney. So I'm going to, again, it looks very similar, right? If I go to add, the only difference is, and something I want you to really pay close attention to, is this section over here, trust on bill. The trust on bill section literally is asking me, if you have trust monies, do you want to automatically apply to the trust bill, which is by, again, the setting that we have by default? Do not want to apply the trust bill at all? Because let's say you did have some trust money, but you did not want to apply the trust money, and you simply wanted to let them know, look, you still owe us this amount. I'm not going to touch your trust money. Then you would have chosen this so that in the invoice, it reflects that you're not applying your trust monies and that you want the 5,000 entirely being paid. Okay. Then last but not least, stop for manual input. What does that mean? That means that if you had the $2,000 and you don't want to use up the entire $2,000 and rather just apply 1,000 against the $5,000 invoice, then you could do that. And this will prompt you so that you can put in the amount that you want to apply. Okay. So let's just say you want to apply the entire thing, automatically apply trust to bill. Then I'm going to hit add to billing run. And of course, you got to put in a matter because otherwise it doesn't know that it's magic. Sorry about that. Highlight that. I'm going to obviously apply it to my case, right, to my matter that I've been working on. And I'm going to go add to billing run. Again, same concept. It shows up here. Now I can go to my destination and I can preview it. And by the way, I didn't mention this before, but you have your options. You can preview it. You can print it. Preview is looking at it in the screen, viewing it in the screen. Print it, obviously, self-explanatory. Filing it means that you're going to create an attachment that you can then email if you want. And of course, an email actually goes out to the client. The pre-bill, you cannot send it via email because this is only for external purposes, right? The pre-bill is for internal purposes. So the pre-bill cannot be emailed, but the bill, of course, can be emailed to the client. So just so you know, if I can preview, and I want to obviously show you how the actual trust money is being applied to my invoice here. So I got apparently 1,500 of what I just worked right now. Along with that, it seems like we had a prior balance of 3,780. So we're going to take that 3,780, add a 1,500 to it, and then apply the 2,000, and hence why the total amount was now 3,280 there. Okay, we see that? Now, remember I told you that if I always wanted to have the replenished amount in here to be showcased on the invoice, you can always go back to your matter maintenance section. We're going to go to Stefan Bell, right? Because we're talking about the replenish amount. Hopefully some of you may be using, hopefully not, but at least you'll know that it's available to you. But it's a feature that I like to go over to make life simple for some folks. In the minimum trust retainer, I'm going to put 2,000. Okay. So now instead of giving me that 3,000, you'll notice that this is going to get refreshed. This is going to get refreshed the minute that I just made that change. Go back, hit save. Okay. I am modifying matter modification successfully saved. So I hit save. Okay. Then I got to hit done again. Okay. Now when I did that, nothing has happened here, but I am going to get out and then come back in, so to speak, right? In my bill selection, and I'm going to preview it this time. When I do that, it'll then know to go to my second page, and my amounts have been added as trust retainer. You see that? And then bumped it up again to 5,280. I just wanted to show you that so you see exactly what happens when you put a minimum trust retainer amount in matter maintenance. Clearly, if this is not something you would do, then obviously you can just simply go back into it, right? Go to matters again. I'm going to pull up my matter, that same one. I'm going to remove that. And when I remove that, it won't be then reflected on the invoice. This particular edit that I'm referring to that you can do, you can obviously make it at any single time, delete it. It's not like it changes anything other than updates the modification that you just made, right? Now I can go back into Stefan Bell. I can preview it again, and then you'll see that it's gone. Okay, so these are the kind of things that how easily you can move things around to include it within your invoice that you're finalizing. So now that I'm doing this, what's the final step? The final step, this is going out to the client. The client is going to understand that after the 2,000 is being applied, they still owe us 3,280. So after I've done my two steps, my pre-bill and my print bill, the minute that you use the print bill function and you either preview it, print it, file it, or email it, it'll go into the list of post bills. of waiting to be posted. And if I go straight to my 1500, you'll see Stefan Bell. Remember 1500 because that's actually the only current amount that is current unbilled, right? Not what the prior balance, that is what you're billing right now. Okay, so what else do I need to do in order for this magical application of my trust against my invoice to happen? Well, you're noticing this guy here. This is an option that I add to include or add through my company preferences. See how it says automatically process trust checks and it has a checkbox? Well, that means that if I do have any trust amounts, or sorry, if I have any trust monies or deposits for this particular case that I'm about to post, I wanted to apply it against my invoice. That's what that means. In order to have this option there, you're going to go into File, Setup, and you're going to go into Company Preferences. Under company preferences, there's going to be an option that says general. And the second one is what you want to click. Auto trust check request upon posting bills. That's the one that you want to make sure that you have a check mark. After you do that, you should also have your firm vendor ID, okay, listed here. Most of you are going to call that my firm. So if you haven't had a chance to make your firm's name and convert that into a vendor, you need to make sure that you do so prior to having this set up, because otherwise, without this, Abacus won't know to move the money. It'll move the money from trust, but and now it's going to put it right under the case so that it can apply it against the invoice. So this is the step that needs to get done as well. If some of you have not had a chance to how to set up a vendor, we can talk about that. Let me just finish this really quick, and maybe that'll be one of the questions as to setting it up. But as long as you have either my firm as the alphanumeric number, you can enter it here, or you can actually enter your firm ID's number there. As long as it's been set up as a firm vendor, you're good to go. Okay, so obviously I'm not going to do anything here, but I'm just going to show you. So once you do that, you get this option. You'll check on this box, and then you'll see your number, your firm vendor number here at the bottom. Okay, so I'm going to go highlight, and then I'm going to go post. When I click post, what's going to happen? As it states here, it says the posting date on your screen should be the cutoff date for the bills being posted. And let's say obviously that's the case. I just created that one through today, and that's exactly what I'm doing. So when I do that, what is actually happening? Well, Abacus is doing this extra step for you. So it's saving you a step or two. What is the step that it's saving you? It's actually going to take the money out of trust and is going to place it in your operating account in Abacus, right? So this is actually saying, please verify the correct starting check number and click print to print the trust checks. This is, of course, if you're using the trust, as you're printing trust out of Abacus, you have the option to print the next check, which could be number 55. But if you're not and you're using, let's say, QuickBooks and whatnot, you can just say post only, do not print checks. Or even if you're not even generating any checks whatsoever, just use this option. When you click on post, it goes through. So now, if I go back to my trust and I go to my matter trust activity, and I'm going to pull up Stefan Bell as my client, if I go all the way down, look at that. The money that was already there is drawn, right? And the withdrawal has already taken place. But you're probably saying, where is it going? Well, it's actually going straight to my billing section under payments received, because this is my operating account. So when I click on my payments received, there it is already listed, as in it's applying against the invoice that I just created. See how it says 2000? It's saying multiple invoices because more than likely you're going to apply it, right, against the prior balance. So if I double click on that, see my prior balance only is going to go into the prior balance is taking multiple because it's going to go first to the prior balance, but then once it applies it to that, it's going to take some of that money and apply it to the next invoice. So that's why it's saying that it's using up more than one invoice when it's applying it. So once you do that, you highlight it, you hit post, and just like that, it'll apply it from your trust account against your invoices that you've set up. That is the conclusion of what I wanted to go over. So if you guys have any questions, please fire away and I'll try to answer them. Okay, there's one question, and it's related to actual other training sessions that if they wanted to go about more specific one-on-one trainings or what are the other schedules that are available out there. There is, if you haven't scheduled anything online, we have a schedule online, and I'm going to bring that up. So basically, just go to abacusnext.com. And if you go all the way to the bottom of any one of our pages, you're going to see where it says schedule a service. Okay. In there, you have options as to the different types of classes that you can book. So the first thing that's going to come up the minute you do that is going to have your terms and conditions, which you're going to say yes to, right? And then, of course, the product that you want, in this case, Abacus Law. And then you're going to have your breakdown, okay? Now, every class is going to be grouped into two sections. Well, I should say four sections altogether, but let's talk about case and practice management, which is Abacus Law, right? Case and practice management, Abacus Law has what we call onboarding training, but billing and accounting also has onboarding training. Your onboarding training for Abacus Law is here, which is these three sessions. So if you want any of these three sessions, you click on that. If you want that same concept for billing and accounting, you would click on, you go to Abacus Accounting and Billing, onboarding, and then you click on this and you get these options. Now, obviously we're doing billing with trust transfers. So that portion of it is going to be in what we call general training for Abacus Accounting and Billing. So this one right underneath it. Okay. So if I go, instead of, you don't click on the onboarding, but rather on the Abacus Accounting, Billing and Training, the general. These learning opportunity in this category can be undertaken in any sequence. When I click on please note, you're going to start seeing, like, for those that are coming in from a different platform and you just started out with Abacus, how do they do their accounting? How do they balance forwards for accounting purposes, chart of accounts, that sort of thing? This is that class. If we're talking about balance forward billing, that's that class. Bank reconciliation, right? You're going to have a little snippet, a little verbiage, a breakdown here, a description, and then you also have the session agenda if you wanted to tap into it. You see how we did a bank, we just did a training, one-on-one, sorry, a webinar here, a free webinar. Some of these are also offered for all of these other classes. For example, on January 15th, I know it passed, but if you wanted to know, well, what was this bank reconciliation class all about? Because if I can get enough of my information from my free webinar, then of course, that's what you should do, right? Because it's free. Now, if you wanted that one-on-one attention and ask away as you're trying to learn all these things, then clearly that's going to be better suited for you and you want to book the class as opposed to free webinar. Because remember, the free webinar, I'm answering anybody else's questions, not necessarily your questions, right? So in the one-on-one, which obviously is at a cost, you would then click here and book it that way. But if there is a free webinar available, maybe you want to sign up for the free webinar whenever it's happening. Well, that one just passed, so that doesn't do you any good. This one passed as well, right? For general ledger reports. Maybe you got to wait until we set up the entire new quarter for free webinars, which is going to come up shortly after the end of March, right? Again, general ledger training. That one's general ledger reports. As you go down the line here, you're going to see all kinds of specific trainings that we offer. And it's just a matter of you clicking and selecting the one that you want. That one's payroll. This is Abacus Payment Exchange. You get the idea, okay? We have all of these that are offered, and it's just a matter of you coming in here and using the one that you want, seeing what is a free, as in what, the webinars that we are using. So you see how it says free webinar, and I'm just doing this one in particular today. Well, I did skip a little bit of like, okay, this is how you generate a pre-bill and with all the great details on that, more than that, and how to do the bill. But if you know all of that, then by all means, free webinar was great because I did go through enough details to give you at least a good foundation on how you can use it. But if you needed to be walked through the whole step by step, as an example, one invoice that you might have and you wanted to make sure it was right, then the one-on-one, I'll be able to answer all those questions for you. Okay, so you can see, again, this is specifically for billing, but that same concept of general training, that also applies for Abacus Law. In other words, for case and practice management. When you click on that, you're going to get all of these options as well. So there's always the onboarding training for both Abacus Law and Billing and Accounting, and there's the general training for both Abacus Law and and Billing and Accounting. Okay, hopefully that answers that question. Any other questions? Okay, I'll give it another minute here or so. And if we don't get any other questions, we're going to call it a day. All right, everyone. It was a pleasure. Thank you for attending. And of course, there are no more questions. So I'm just going to bid you farewell and have a nice day. Okay. Until next time, take care now.